buck stops with you. If they were audited the next day after launch, they would be okay. A lot more to do in the GRC space. People aren't having to take 50 screenshots, and give it to auditors. How are you going to change your test procedures and your audit approach by us having these new processes and tools?
Hi, Alan. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you here as part of GRC Go Points. And before we get started, I would love to get to know you a little better, both as a leader and as an individual.
My journey in GRC has been like my whole entire professional career. So over 20 years, born and raised in Seattle, Washington. Started out as being an auditor at PricewaterhouseCoopers, one of the big four accounting firms, doing SOX, Sarbanes-Oxley, third-party attestations, some advisory work. I was there for quite a while, 8.5 years. And at the manager level, I was like, okay, what do I want to do with my life after this, right? Do I want to continue going and, eventually maybe make a partner at like a big four accounting firm, or split off and, go into industry and go deeper, that way? Because like managers like the level to actually kind of do that, right? So at the time, I was at one of my clients locally, it was Microsoft. And naturally, a lot of people that leave, the big four, go to one of their clients. I went to Microsoft Bing, built the GRC team from scratch over there. This org never had any compliance requirements, right? So they're just like wild, wild west over there. And then my team came in and we're like, hey, slow down. You got to do Sarbanes-Oxley, you got to do SOC 1, you got to do this MRC thing, this Media Rating Council accreditation, which is all about online advertising and tracking impressions and clicks completely and accurately for reporting. It was quite an eye-opening experience for myself and the org. Transitioning from a consultant to, second line of defense as an FTE in an organization like Microsoft Bing was pretty eye-opening. The accountability that you have, the buck stops with you. There's no layers of management within the consulting firm to rely on. Like that kind of accountability was like kind of eye-opening. With that also was a bigger sense of belonging and pride. From consultant to FTE at a company, like consultants, you're being bounced around all the time. You finish a project, maybe your sponsor's like, hey, good job, consultant, thanks, go away, we'll call you when you need you again. Or, they're gonna blame you if the project went south. So as an FTE, it's like more of a sense of, belonging and pride of seeing the fruits of your own labor of the project or the program you stood up, right? So seeing the longevity into that. A lot of times, in consultancy, there's a lot of clients that you're getting deployed onto, and you see a lot, but typically you're not really going that deep. You're like pretty shallow. It's like an inch deep maybe, versus just staying in one place, one org, one team, one company, really understanding the environment, really understanding like the behind the doors, type of truth, going a mile deep, and really kind of making an impact and driving change that way. So, that was kind of eye-opening thing for me from making that transition. About 5 years in Bing, I was looking for something else. So I popped over next door to Microsoft Azure compliance. Azure was like massively bigger scale, 100 plus certifications, because they have to deal with all the international certifications and regulatory laws. The team size was even bigger also. We had like commercial versus federal versus like audit readiness versus all these kind of niche kind of teams. Throughout those 5 years that I was there, I led the SOC audits, SOC 1 and 2, Sarbanes-Oxley, SOX, PCI, high trust, and dabbled in like all the international, certifications, and then also led the customer right to audit programs as well. Those are the more interesting ones because it's not your typical big four auditing firms or PCI audit assessors. It's like the internal audit teams at banks in Europe, that want to audit Azure themselves. Also dabbled in some automation, right? So like Microsoft is a large organization. They also are a software company. So they don't buy tools, they build their own tools. So for the GRC space, it was like building automation tools to help with audit readiness. Microsoft Azure has tons of services that they're offering and that they're launching every single month, because that's such a high velocity, the ability for the GRC team or the security team to make sure that, prior to service launch, they're already compliant. So building automation tools for audit readiness, evidence collection, continuous monitoring of controls. We also built a tool that was like automated mapping of standards and frameworks to control. So this is like prior to Gen AI, prior to ChatGPT, all that kind of stuff. It's like, we had MLs that were helping us build this kind of automated mapping and kind of using AI.
Now, what was the situation that you were hired in for Grammarly? What was the problem at hand at Grammarly, and how did you go about solving it?
3.5 years ago, that's when I joined Grammarly. We had a SOC 2, the SOC 2, the ISO 27001, 2717, 18 PCI. We had achieved that prior to me joining. That we had our first certs and attestation reports in 2021. It was already established. It was kind of immature, but we got it done. So I was brought in as the first kind of North American, hire to lead the GRC team. Before I came in, it was led by somebody on the engineering side, which is pretty common, for kind of startup-y organizations to have just people wear different hats. So at the time, we knew we wanted to improve and mature our trust posture from not just having those, but like improving on those and getting, new certifications. So that's kind of what I was brought in to do to help just kind of accelerate that desire and head into a direction which is like sustainable, scalable. We're growing at the time too. When I got hired, it was like 600 people. Now we have, 1,500 people-ish, and 2 acquisitions later, right? Like I wouldn't say when I joined, there was such an aggressive aspiration for acquiring companies. It was always a possibility, but halfway through my tenure at Grammarly, like that was seeing the likelihood of that was going to be higher. So that was something I was going to have to deal with. It's like, how do you deal with different compliance programs, different security certifications, attestations that each entity has? That's basically the most recent kind of, I guess, quote unquote problem that my team is solving.
To summarize, I think your point is largely the goal was to now make it more mature as a system. Basically, the function GRC that you were brought in for, and your goal was to make the program more mature and then obviously prepare for the acquisitions per se when they happen. What did maturity mean in the scenario that you were in? What were the tasks at hand? How did you go about, one, prioritizing, and second, go about solving them?
I think what's probably common at a lot of places that, our first year, or I got the SOC, it's like a very big celebratory moment, which it is, right? Which it is. But I think most places are not super mature, when they actually get their first SOC 2 or the first ISO. They have everything in place that they needed for the auditors to opine on and say, yes, you have a unqualified opinion, or we're going to issue you the certification because of this, you're in conformance with all the requirements, for ISO. But a lot of times it's kind of like patched together, by the GRC team or whoever was working on achieving that cert. Again, like some people have multiple hats, right? And maybe there wasn't even a GRC team, it was just a few engineers, that kind of made it happen. And to me, that's not sustainable, right? Like as you scale, like the lore of an annual audit is going to die down, right? People are going to have more important things to work on. Like the other half of their job is going to be more important. Like if they're an engineer, they got to, push out features. Like they're no longer going to have as much time as the first year when everybody was like, oh, we got to push, to get our first certification. I wanted to like build something that was sustainable. So the first thing that I did was just identify ownership, right? Like who owns these things? Who owns these controls? What is GRC responsibility? What are the control owners' responsibility in terms of, owning these controls and maintaining them and monitoring them? Like a lot of companies do, their monitoring is just kind of poking and checking right before the audit happens and hoping that nothing is too bad. That's pretty typical for not a fully mature program or team. But it all starts at who owns these things, right? Does GRC own these things, or does the control owner own these things? Then you can start piling on the different processes and continuous monitoring, that you want to have. So there's like a lot of talk in GRC engineering space, right? It's like, oh, GRC's engineering team should be building these things to like enforce controls and compliance and monitor, control effectiveness. Like I personally actually disagree with that, because it should be first line, right? It should be first line that owns those controls, that are responsible for everything related to the control. GRC team is second line, who comes in and helps, right? Kind of passes the sniff test, like, hey, are you doing all the things that you should be doing to monitor this control? We can help with auditing it, but we shouldn't really be the ones that are implementing, how the control should be operating or implemented. That's the first thing, right? And then after that, it was easy. It was easy to just say, okay, we're going to do this, you're going to do that. This is how we're going to work together. And then, piled on the monitoring, piled on the formality of like having a framework, piled on some tooling to make processes more efficient. And now, like audits are relatively easy, right? Like we self-serve a bunch of evidence, because GRC is not the implementer of the control. we don't own the control, but we have read-only access to the systems, and we understand, what auditors need to, test and control. So if we didn't nail like roles and responsibilities, from day one, then all the stuff after that would have just not happened or would be very broken.
What role does automation play today for you? One second, what are the use cases you're really solving for?
We're using a tool such as Sprinto, and a lot of the tools, right, are going to be providing solutions in a similar way, right? So like continuous monitoring assurance of controls. That's the main reason why we adopted a tool, to be honest. It's not so much like to handle the audit side, even though yes, it should, make the audit side more efficient as well. At the end of the day, like you want continuous monitoring, you want internal assurance, you want the CISO to feel comfortable, right? That the controls under their area are operating effectively constantly. So no more twice a year internal audit right before the auditors come in to like get that signal, right? You just want that continuous assurance. And that's what, most tools like compliance automation tools are doing. Then you kind of start going to like the audit side. It's like evidence collection. Well, if your tool is already monitoring your controls effectiveness, then you can probably leverage whatever it's querying as the evidence for auditors. Mapping of standards and frameworks and controls is another thing for automation, even though a lot of people like talk a big game of why that's such a like important thing. To us, it's okay. I mean, like I said, if you have SOC 2, some ISO, some PCI, like 4 or 5 standards, I mean, there's already all these mapping documents out there, publicly available. So you can leverage those already. But at the end of the day, I think every company is probably going to be customizing their controls, their custom controls framework anyway. And then any legit GRC team skill set is to know what are all the standards and frameworks, what are all the ones that are similar, how does one control map to multiple, standards and frameworks. I mean, if you're like in Azure where there's 100 plus certifications, there's a new international, regulation or certification that's coming out that you need to, maybe like the automated mapping would be helpful, like for a company that size. But if you don't always have that kind of type of velocity of adding in new standards or frameworks, then I think that's just like, cool that tool has security questionnaires, right? Like TPRM questionnaires, the 300 questions that come at you in Excel spreadsheets. I think both automation and AI, help with decreasing that load for there. And I think like just risk control, if there's all this mumbo jumbo to somebody that is not very well versed in GRC and controls and standards and frameworks, right? So like if someone's like, hey, you need to comply with, I don't know, like PCI V4 now, and somebody reads all those requirements, they're like, I don't know what this is talking about. I don't know what we need. You could probably just pump it into ChatGPT and be like, hey, what does PCI DSS V4 requirement 8. blah, blah, blah actually mean? What are some options for me to actually implement controls to meet that requirement, right? I think ChatGPT does that very well, right? Instead of having to spend a lot of time like doing research and asking people and like what can I implement. And also on the risk side, right? So like risk identification, like there's a lot of prompts out there that you can ask ChatGPT about risks. It's like, okay, for this size company in this industry that's dealing with this, what are the top 10 risks that threaten an organization like this? And then once you get that, it's like, okay, what is the quantification, right? How can you quantify how much this risk would be to my organization should that have played out, like some breach, and then ChatGPT is like, okay, then you ask them to back it up to like, what is it? How did you back up this quantified number, right? We research we reference like the Verizon, breach report, or like, similar cases where like there's a GDPR violation or something like that, right? Where it's like, now you can bridge the gap between a qualitative, risk register to more of like moving towards like a quantitative approach.
How is GRC engineering, one, enabling you? Second, what else can GRC engineering should be doing according to you?
I'm not the originator of like the whole GRC engineering movement, right, that we see on LinkedIn a lot, but their principles are basically like, be a little bit more technical, understand the space that you're in. Don't just talk business. Don't just talk to auditors. Like, be able to translate, the standards and the requirements and the frameworks into engineering speak. That's one thing. That's like the core, like just foundational skill set. Then like the more technical skills come in is like, okay, how do you help implement the controls, shifting left into that flow instead of just being a paper policy that nobody reads and cannot be enforced. If you're in AWS, how are you as a GRC team member going to contribute to implementing these controls in a more effective way that's like preventive versus like detective or like after the fact, or not even tied in, with engineering processes? And then there's the whole like making the audit experience better, through the use of scripts and automation and logs and pulling in evidence. So, people aren't having to take 50 screenshots, and give it to auditors. I think the part that is missing that nobody really talks about right now is how are the auditors going to accept or react to all these things that like the GRC engineering teams are doing and building, and or using a tool such as Sprinto, to evidence their controls. Not every single audit firm is going to accept evidence and data just being spit out from these continuous monitoring systems and tools. A lot of auditors are stuck, back 3 decades ago, right? And still testing things like they have been, right? Manual screenshots, point in time assessments to test automated controls. They haven't really evolved past that. You need the audit industry to go along with that journey and evolve at the same time. So it's like a control that's used to be binary, that it was like automated control that auditors used to test at point in time and say, hey, is it good or yes or no? If it's not, then you got an exception. But now with continuous monitoring, like you're going to have reds, right? Your system is going to tell you that, hey, that configuration is not set properly. But it's all about what you do after you detect that and you have an alert for that. It's like, okay, what do you do? What are you doing with that? Are you remediating it timely, quickly? If you are, and that's what your policy says based on the risk, then great. It shouldn't be an exception, right? But some auditors are gonna be like, oh, you had 4 reds throughout the whole entire period, so like I'm gonna write those up as exceptions. It's like, well, if that's the case, then I'm not gonna show you all this stuff, and you're gonna go back to screenshots, right? I'm gonna give you your screenshots then. Let's go back to that. If that's how you're gonna play it, right? So I think that hasn't been discussed enough, within like auditors. Like we haven't really put them on the spot yet and be like, hey, how are you gonna audit? How are you gonna change your test procedures and your audit approach by us having these new processes and tools, that we've engineered to have way more transparency and way more compliance and security assurance throughout the entire period continuously. But how do I not shoot myself in the foot, right? By sharing that, right, with you as an auditor.
Who's Alan outside of work? What are your hobbies like? What do you like doing outside of work?
So I'm a father, I'm a husband, 2 small children. So that takes up most of my time outside of those. I've always been into like martial arts. So I do combat sports, boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu. I'm also like a marathon runner, like a long endurance, sports, so triathlons, marathons. So yeah, those are all the things that, make me recharge and are my outlets outside.
Thank you so much, Alan. This has been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure too. Thanks for having me on.